Welcome to the Faith Forum, a series of talks with leading thinkers, best-selling authors, business leaders, philosophers, artists, and theologians of our time. We're so happy you've joined us, and we hope this podcast offers food for your spiritual journey. From Christ Episcopal Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm the Reverend Chip Edens, and this is the Faith Forum.
Friends, we are so lucky today to have with us Father John Roberts from Batcave.
That's right.
Does that sound
Father
good?
Batman.
Father Batman, as they like to call him. Can we give John a welcome? Before we get started, I just want to say John has served as the Rector of Transfiguration Batcave since 2023. He and his family love being part of their church community. John was ordained in 2017, has been working within the Episcopal Church since 2009. Before coming to Transfiguration, he served in a variety of contexts as formation director, assistant priest, and most recently as school chaplain at Christ School in Asheville. John and his wife Hannah Marie, along with their two children, live in Black Mountain. And John and Hannah Marie grew up near Christ Church in Charlotte. Met in an Episcopal church in Winston-Salem. Are y'all catching on to the trend here? Okay. John's originally from Ohio, and after attending seminary in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Swanee, he now calls the mountains of Western North Carolina home. And I would call the work that he is doing in the region vocation. So John, thank you for being here with us this morning and for the conversation that we're going to share. Before we get started, we're just going to show a video to get us on our way and to start our conversation with a little bit of an update.
Sounds great.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Father John Roberts. I'm the rector of the Episcopal Church of the Transfiguration here in Batcave, North Carolina. In those early days, I was behind a mudslide. I had super limited reception, and information was coming and going in sort of bits and pieces as you could get it. So there were sort of stories that Lake Lord Dams was collapsing, that Batcave and Chimney Rock and all this. So I really had no good idea how many parishioners were affected. In order to initially kind of get down here and assess it, you had to hike in. And when I hiked down and saw what was happening there and realized the basic things that folks didn't have, I mean, there were just tents set up, people were camping on edges of mudslides, using buckets as bathrooms. There was this kind of grassroots organization. I truly took the keys out of my pocket and just gave them to this group. I knew enough to know kind of who they were, to say, you know what, I would rather you all have the keys to this building and make use of it while we can. Very early initially, people were sleeping here, using the church for all kinds of things. Our parish hall has hosted groups from 25 Amish to being just full to the gills with relief hub stuff. More days people have been sleeping and living there than they haven't been since the storm. In the demographics of our parish, we're a small church, maybe I have 65. Within sort of our parish rosters, 40-some family units in our church had some to significant damage. 12 family units lost almost everything they own, cars, houses, possessions. We had one parishioner that has died immediately in the storm. We've had 6 families leave the region because it's just been too much to rebuild or lack of access. So February 23rd was our first service back here. And well, there was such a feeling of joy to be back together as a community. On the other hand, it was the first time a lot of parishioners had driven through Chimney Rock and some areas of Lake Lore and Batcave and seen any of this. And there were also people showing up in tears because it was the first time they had seen the devastation. What I think we're really committed to is when we can be and safely be here, we are going to continue to be bearing witness to God in this gorge. We're going to bear witness to the faithfulness of God in past, present, and future. And if it's simply by just showing up here and being in our pews and naming that this is a spot still for beauty and welcome, we're going to do it. So I can't believe that it has been almost a year since the hurricane. In some ways, when I've been thinking about it, it's down here, at least in Batcave, it's almost hard to remember what life was like before the storm, just because it has so fundamentally shifted kind of who we are. And yet, at the other hand, things definitely have progressed and changed, transfigured since then. So since the early days of the storm, we've tried to make sure our buildings and our property is used for whoever needs it most, particularly around shelter, but also rebuilding efforts. So we were blessed several years ago with this large donation of this tract of land next to the church property. And there was a story where all the trees came down and it felt really devastated. But then slowly over time, with some of the relief groups that have been working down here, the wood was used for rebuilding efforts. That was all milled from our trees with Amish volunteer groups that were sleeping in the church. And then even recently, we have parishioners who are working to rebuild a shop in Chimney Rock. It just reopened a few weeks ago, and all the shelves in their shop are wood from our Transfiguration property. But as the wood got cleared out, then the land was able to be used for rebuilding efforts for Batcave disaster, as well as some other groups that have used it to store their heavy equipment, materials that are donated. So one of the initiatives we're really thankful for, and this is in partnership with funds curated by the diocese through Episcopal Relief and Development, but is being able to open a laundry facility here at the church. There was the old rectory, so there was a pretty good sized laundry room, mudroom area, but we're using the funds to expand that, to put more washers and dryers, to make it actually a beautiful space that's open 24/7, that's secure and safe. We still have neighbors using the bathroom in buckets. We still have people that, of course, have no access to laundry. So I'm thankful that the grounds and buildings are continue being used. It continues to be such an honor to serve at Transfiguration, to be a presence down here, to continue to bear witness to the continuing changes and ways that we've had to react and respond to the needs around us as a church. And I just have to say, the folks that are still able to come, the kind of core folks that are here at the church are doing so much. When people have asked how they can support us as a congregation and as a church, one of the biggest ways, as I keep saying, is just to know we're not alone, a relationship, to know that after a year, where so much, thanks be to God, but so much of Western North Carolina has started to recover or resume some normalcy, that our normalcy is still at this level. We have not kind of resumed what life was. It looks different. It'll always look different down here for decades to come. So I think our call for our church continues to not only try to be physically present in our space, to try to help connect resources when we can, but it's that continued ministry of presence, which follows the example of Jesus and his followers, being present with each other in times of struggle, in times of goodness, to bear witness to what we've seen, the hurt, and the continuing challenge as people are rebuilding their lives.
So I want to back up to you ending up at Christ Church with your kids on the playground.
That's right.
Having been evacuated from the space.
Yeah.
Can you believe it's been a year?
I really cannot, actually. Yeah. There's times where that feels way further ago, and then times that it seems just like yesterday. Honestly, even just coming back down here yesterday and knowing my route that I learned pretty well to Christ Church and thinking, hey, I've got this. This wasn't that long ago. So, but yeah, kind of on our end, so I'll start just a little bit kind of personal and then get to how we ended up down here in Charlotte. So this is the craziest way to begin this story, but I'll say my wife and I, nobody in Western North Carolina knew this was coming. And I shouldn't say that we weren't warned, but in the mountains, you hear hurricanes are coming and you just don't really think about it. So restaurants were open, life was kind of normal. It happened to be our anniversary weekend, and we were supposed to go out of town. So we did take the okay, we should probably stay in town because where we were gonna go was right by a river up in Hot Springs. So we did. But my parents said, y'all at least take the night at your house. And we thought we can organize some closets, all the things you can't do when you have a 2- and 4-year-old. So they went and stayed with my parents the night of the hurricane. So all this went on. We weren't with our kids. We woke up, there was still reception and connection. When your phones do that blaring thing in the middle of the night. So I thought, I guess we should go downstairs. But we were like, what? This cannot be a thing. It's a heavy rain, So we go downstairs, and then all these reports start coming through of the imminent Montreat, which is right near we live. Their dam was, we were being told to evacuate because that dam was collapsing. Then you saw Lake Lore, all these alerts coming down. Then we had this moment of, we're not with our kids, and this is a real thing. It's starting to get light out, and we're starting to, our neighborhood, every other house was relatively devastated. Mostly for us, it was huge oak trees, but also flooding. The golf course across the street from us, we could see the water rising. And I don't know much about hurricanes or storms. I know more now than I did then. But I knew enough to know that storm surge and water was only going to get worse. And if we needed to get our kids, we needed to get there now. So the wind started to die down just enough. Yeah. Long story short, it took us about an hour and 10 minutes to get to my parents' house, which should have been under a 10-minute drive down. Just because the roads and the blockage and things were flying across, houses were moving. I mean, I can't even, it was just nuts. We get up there, we put any very quickly possessions we have in the car, which would be our pets. My wife's type 1 diabetic, part of the story, so whatever insulin we could get, a little bit of food and water. Yeah. We got there, they live in a beautiful mountain community in Swannanoa, another one of the really heavily affected areas. We had to climb over 2 mudslides. I forgot a leash, the things you don't think about. So I took my belt off and had the dog on my belt, and we're going over a landslide as it's moving. We climbed to the top of the mountain. We get there. We get to my kids. I will also say, and truly, you can laugh at this, you just have to pile. We had hand, foot, and mouth at the same time. We get up there. My kids aren't feeling well. I'm starting not to feel well.
Does this feel normal? This is like once it rains, it pours. I mean, this is the
our nice
thing,
little Black
right?
Mountain life all of a sudden got So we're up there, and then we stay obviously with my parents. We had a little creek, so we were bathing in a creek. Obviously, we had no power. At somewhere along the time, you lost all reception and connection. So you had no idea what was going on. You could sort of see from the mountain top. And I don't say this lightly, you could watch Swannanoa getting washed away from getting up there. It was a really intense couple days. We had concerns, of course, about medication. We had concerns about food and water. The mudslide, a helicopter came and delivered stuff to us. I mean, you just can hardly even imagine it now. So long story short, once the mudslide got cleared, we were feeling a little better. All the alerts, you were getting some emergency. The government got some temporary towers up, so we started to get a little connection, and you were just getting asked to leave. Please leave if you can, so that we can get. So we did. So we went down the mountain to Charlotte. So my wife grew up here. Her dad was the pastor at Dilworth Methodist, right down the road here. We had some dear family friends that lived right around the corner on Colony with this beautiful home. So here roll in the Roberts. And our car smells like mold and water and dirt. Our pets are with us. We have we all have hand, foot, and mouth. Whatever stuff we have is to the ceiling. And we get out, and I don't, I'm not saying this is a good thing. I don't typically get teary very easily. Yeah. But when I pulled in the driveway, and as you can imagine, there's already, Charlotte is a different feel than Black Mountain, so there's already that different feel. But then after what we had just been through, pulling into this beautiful neighborhood, right here in South Charlotte and our South Park area, and getting out of the car, and I could just sense we do not look like we belong here post hurricane. And the mother who we were staying with, the grandmother, walked out, Betsy, and she had her arms open like this, and I was already feeling sort of the emotions of it all. And I said, you can't. We have hand, foot, and mouth. We shouldn't even be walking into your house. And she just said, I don't care. And she came up and gave us these warm hugs. And that got us settled in Charlotte. We were here about 10 days. My wife's a physician, and those who were evacuated from the area still needed medical refills. I needed to be seen. And again, I don't say this lightly, who was alive in my congregation and who was not. I needed to be raising money. I needed to be, so we needed reception to do it. So it's like we got to Charlotte, then all of a sudden we were on our laptops and both trying to work our jobs as best we could, but also needing some breaks. And I knew that there was this lovely church up the road, Christ Church, because I had Gray and Walker Edens at Christ School, where I was before. So I'd gotten to know the Edens family a little, and I know they will not mind us on their playground. And if they say anything, I'll say, "Hey, Chip, it's me." I know it doesn't look like me right now. Actually, I had a shower by that point. But so that's kind of how it happened. Chip was walking out the door, and I was walking by, and the kids and I were just looking around the campus, and he was like, "John?" I was like, "Yeah." So that sort of began this connection and relationship. Do you want me to talk about coming back from Charlotte?
Yeah, so let's sit with that for a second. So you go through all that.
Yeah.
Everything starts slowing down. You're getting connection. You're getting a view of what's going on. I can remember you when you were on the playground, and then you came back at another time, and you and Laura and Chip.
Yeah.
And I and a couple others walked into the office, and we all sat down, and we started talking. At that point,
well, first
you
Chip
really
said,
weren't
"Are you
even
hungry?
clear.
Can I order you
Yeah,
some
can
pizza?"
I get you a
And I
pizza?
said, "Actually,
that's right. Yeah. And then we got a pizza.
Yep.
What was it like to come into the space and to realize that like you weren't gonna be alone?
Yeah, I think the first thing that really stuck with me was the beautiful thing that we all share, being in this Episcopal world and a denomination. Denominations have their own ups and downs. I mean, that's a whole nother kind of, but what you realize is the beautiful side of having brothers and sisters in Christ that you barely know or you even know, but knowing there's a place of connection and a place of safety. And then Laura, I remember coming out and being like, "We have been trying to connect with people from Western North Carolina. We have no idea, like we're trying to gather these things and do these things, but we can't get a hold of anybody." And I'm saying, "I know you can't get a hold of anybody." Signal was starting to get back up, but just the fact that you all were already trying to figure out whatever you could do to gather supplies, knowing that it would be needed eventually for when that connection was remade. Just, and I guess I said it on the video, but the feeling of not feeling alone was 99% of what I needed. More than the stuff, more than whatever else, was knowing that there's people that have got our back.
Yeah, because your story is the story of hundreds of others in the same time, right? So you get grounded, you get clear that it's okay for you to go back, and or you have a sense you're going to go back, right? I mean, this is where vocation and safety and those things kind of come in.
There were some initial questions where I was like, "They have a preschool. I'm sure Chip would let my kids go to their preschool if we're just in Charlotte now." But I mean, I say that kind of joking, but kind of serious. Is we didn't know if our home was still standing. We didn't know if the church was still standing.
And this wasn't the first time that the church has been through a natural disaster before. So you had that story in your head too, right? Say a little bit about that, because the church has had multiple iterations of natural disasters coming through. So you've got this question in the back of your head. Say a little bit about that.
So I knew enough, kind of the history of the church that had been destroyed twice before by natural disaster. First by the flood, and I should know this date by now. I think it's 1918, but right thereabouts was the last ginormous storm that came through the gorge area where the church is in Bat Cave and Chimney Rock. And then the second was by wildfire, which I will jump ahead and say you heard a lot of efforts on there about wood on our property. We lost hundreds and hundreds of trees. And at the same time, last fall and early spring, you might remember there were wildfires in Western North Carolina, and there was fear of that. So having all that wood down around the church was also, but knowing that the church had been destroyed before by wildfires, and to think, oh my gosh, yet one more thing, it's sort of those Job moments. But all that to say, they got it right this time. They built the church up on a bank. It was built out of stone. And it happens to be in one spot where the river's straight, so the water rose enormously high, way up this river bluff that we're on, all the way up to the church, but not enough to take the building down. So, and it really does remain one of the only intact buildings in the entire Bat Cave community, certainly one that is not a private home, but even including private homes.
So say a little bit about that journey. So you got the questions, you get in the car, you start making your way back up there, and you get up there, and A, what was the journey like? And then B, what was it like to arrive at the church and to see that they got it right?
Yeah. So when we were in Charlotte, I had seen a rough satellite drone picture. I don't know which one it was, enough to know the building was kind of there. So I had an idea the building was there, had no idea what shape it was in. And that, of course, was the question. So we got ourselves back up. And while we were in Charlotte, we were trying to Zoom with other members of our congregation. We were keeping lists. We were trying to track down everybody we could, because most everybody had been evacuated out. And when they got evacuated out, then we got signal. Then we could check in. But I had people from all over the country reaching out to me, knowing that their parents or their grandparents went to my church and saying, we haven't heard from them. Do you know if they're okay? So that was a lot of the work in Charlotte. But all that to say, I knew the building was there-ish. But I was really anxious to just get down there and see and be present. And if there's any call of a priest, it is to hope to be present with your people and your community as best you can. So, you felt that like heartstring. That's what my 4-year-old talks about, but that heartstring tug to get back. So we were able to come up 40 pretty well to Black Mountain. Our home was okay. So we got back into our neighborhood. We didn't have power or water, but my parents did, and the mudside was cleared, so we would go up there every couple days to bathe and do what we needed to do, but we still wanted to be in our space. But immediately I wanted to get down to the church. So I drove as far as I could, Highway 9 from Black Mountain down. If you've done it before, it's already a crazy road. You cross the Continental Divide. For some reason, I love the fact that I say I cross the Continental Divide every time I go to work. But you go up, you go back
It's
down.
kind of a spiritual thing, isn't it?
It is kind of a spiritual thing.
Okay. I get
you
it.
have sort of
I
that
get it.
prayer
I get it.
journey of
Yeah.
but the road was already treacherous before the storm. All kinds of, I will say the story. It took hours to get as far as I did, and I was able to get to the last possible place where there was no more road. It was about 4 miles from the church. And by that point, I had my backpack, I had my camera, and met a parishioner. He's now our junior warden, but he's around my age and lived kind of nearby. And he met me at the bottom of his mountain road, and we walked down together. And we prayed, and we looked. The National Guard, military, checkpoints, Raleigh police, Charlotte police, there were just volunteers were everywhere. There were checkpoints everywhere. Helicopters constantly coming in and out. It was a true emergency zone. Something that I would have said casually before, but did not know the difference until I've actually been in one. And only because of who I was, I literally brought my stole and had to hold it up and talk about that being my church and show a picture of me in front of the church. But we walked down there, we got there, and that the wave of relief of like, if you look just at that part with all the downed wood and all the buildings and debris.
This is kind of the
trucks.
church up on the hill here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And that was just about the view, walking up the road, and you can see all these trucks. This was a little bit later, but
Yeah. You're walking down the road, you see it up on the hill.
yeah, and that wave of relief hits, and yet also that kind of feeling of home. Thank you for pointing. I forgot we had these pictures rotating through,
it's
so you
fine.
can kind of see the unveiling of getting the road cleared. So the road immediately in front of the church was there. The road before the church and after the church was gone. And by gone, I mean gone, like cliff, water, just absolutely not possible. So when I got there, I put my backpack on. After we prayed together in the church, we walked to the grounds, we assessed the damage, we took pictures. And it's sort of funny, the things that you thought to take out, but it's the Church of the Transfiguration, and the congregation had worked together with the former rector and written this beautiful icon that was in the back of the church always, and it was the icon of the Transfiguration. So I unscrewed it, took that off the wall, put that in my backpack. I took the reserved sacrament out because I knew I would want to use that to get to people, to take to people in what turned out to be the months and months to come. I took a chalice and paten, knowing that perhaps we would have opportunity to use it somewhere. And this is the sort of funny part, is I took the church check stock, which turns out when you don't have access to your offices, all of a sudden it becomes incredibly, the things you think would be easy, but what did we need most was to get money to people immediately. And money was coming in through online, and I was working, but there was no good way to get it out.
Right.
And then we kind of made the temporary office at the diocesan offices for the next 4 or 5 months and worked out of there. But that's what I filled my backpack with. And we walked back to the car and and then it took several months
Yeah.
until there was road access.
So you're there, and seminary has prepared you perfectly for this moment.
Absolutely.
correct? Right?
Yeah. I actually specifically got my Master's of Divinity with an emphasis on
Hurricane,
emergency.
emergency, right.
If only.
But your intuition was right.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think so.
You put the things in your backpack that you knew were the ingredients to being the church in the world. An image to remind people of home,
Yeah.
a chalice and a paten to break bread, and to do like a little pop-up tabernacle, like the people wandering in the wilderness, I can imagine at different times.
Yeah.
The symbols and accoutrement of what it meant to be home and to be gathered.
Yeah.
And a pocketbook to be able to resource those that you may have met along the way, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So say a little bit about what it was like in the days after that to discover what it meant to be the church alive in the world versus the church as a building to which people go to.
Yeah, I'll sort of say that in two parts. So there's the church building response, and we have grounds there, and kind of how this can be helpful into the loss of Batcave. And then there was the church, meaning the people, the community, and sort of those two pieces. So I'll start with the church part over here, and you beautifully sort of led into it, this idea of tabernacle. So it did sort of become like Tabernacle Church, and it all comes down. I have to say, I'm a geography nerd. I don't know where that comes from, but I love geography, so I will not spend the next 20 minutes talking about the geography of the gorge to you. I could, but it really is important to name that it's sort of this hourglass thing that really, if you could get to the church one way, it takes an hour and a half to get to the church coming the other way. Like, these are steep cliffs, steep gorge. It's not like you could just cut another access road or find another way to meet. So a lot of my congregation is on the north part, which is Batcave, Girton, even up into Fairview, getting nearer Asheville, or the other half is sort of the Lake Lore contingent, and you can't get from here to here without going truly an hour this way or this way, through Old Fort or all the way through Hendersonville and 26 and back down and around. So because people kept saying, this isn't hard. I mean, truly, and people weren't trying to be mean, but they would say, just find a temporary spot, like a school or a library you guys can meet, or even somebody's home, like you can meet there. And I would say, but whatever I choose, I'm ostracizing a third of my congregation because that other part can't drive an hour and a half to get there. So this is back to those denomination connections and the diocese, but the priest relationships. This is why building relationships always is so important, because you never know when you're going to need those to lean on. But I was already close, of course, with the surrounding clergy of other Episcopal churches near us. So we would hop each Sunday. I rotated between three that were nearest each of those chunks of my congregation, and I would just blend into the service, kind of like I did this morning. I would do different pieces or parts, and we would get a picture and hang out for coffee hour and do our thing. So it was about 30 or 35 of each Sunday, different group. We're about 60, 70 on a Sunday. By this point, people were coming back from being evacuated out, and I would see that chunk of the congregation every 3 weeks or so. But we would bring that icon, like you said, that sense of feeling home wherever we were at, and it did serve to ground us, and serve to remind us that we are something bigger than a building, and what community and connection looks like. So we had that going on. But then the other part over here was sort of, what do we do with the building? And I mentioned this in the video, and it just dawned on me while I was watching it. These are actually the same keys. I have them back now. But they were my car keys, which has all my church keys connected to it. And that first time I hiked down there, I met this grassroots group that is still there, still using our grounds and buildings, and that was just at that time doing basic rescue, trying to get food, coordinating with the helicopters, coordinating with all the emergency folk coming through. And it was very obvious they needed space. There were tents everywhere. I mean, I can't even, the living conditions. So I got down there and realized the worst possible thing I can imagine for a church is having the only building standing and the doors locked. Worst possible thing I could imagine. And that was the situation we were in. So thank God I was able to get down there so that was not the legacy of Transfiguration and Batcave. And I truly took these exact keys out of my pocket, gave it to this group that I kind of knew who they were, didn't really know who they were. It was, some of the reports were absolute not false coming out of what was going on in the gorge. Some of them were true. There really were people driving back and forth with rifles and trucks and local militia. I mean, it was, you just can't imagine what it was all like, looting, I mean, all these other things. And the thought was, I would much rather, not only theologically, is our call of gospel Christian people have this building being used, but even practically, I would rather people using it and in it that I kind of know than the possibility of this getting broken into or looted. So I handed over the keys, said, whatever you need, use it. Of course, there was no power, there was no water. That didn't come for months and months back to the church, but just even having a place for shelter and to set up emergency supplies. So people have been living there, staying there, cooking out of there. We've been providing meals, heavily for rescue workers, but also there were plenty of people in Bat Cave that still don't have a kitchen, don't have running power, water, and a lot of these were people of means, but they've lost everything. Insurance pays for nothing. If they rebuild, then they have to have a second mortgage on a home that they already didn't have. Car insurance doesn't cover anything. I mean, if you lost all of your assets in one night, like your physical asset, like that's with no insurance, no backup possibility, that's what many of the folks are dealing with there. So having the church as that lifeline is huge.
So we've heard a little bit in your story, and our theme for the year has been perseverance. And fear and trauma and hardship makes people respond in all different kinds of ways. I'm hearing you talk about militias and looting, and it strikes me that that's a motivation of fear. I hear of the people that showed up, of the Amish group that showed up and were just like, we don't care just tell us what to do. We're here to serve, right?
Yeah.
You could have looked at it and said, like, there's fear there, but the fear led them into a different place. There were people who, and I'd love for you to tell this story, there were people who were scared, and literally the only place that they could go to was the church. And I think there was a rumor that was going around that some people had broken into the church, and that they were staying there, and you have a different sort of view. It's amazing how the narratives kind of get out and travel.
Yeah.
So
true.
say a little bit about your experience of with that couple.
First, I should just say really quickly, while I was talking about the challenges down there, I have to name this with as much emphasis as I can. The human goodness in all of this is unparalleled. I mean, so what I talked about there was 1% of the story. The 99% of the story is the goodness and the beauty and the generosity and neighbor caring for neighbor and people caring for people. And I never want to lose sight of that, because you remember some of the crazier sides of the story, but the 99% of that is just beautiful and so worthy of celebrating, even in all the trauma of it all. But so I think it was actually first when I was down here in Charlotte and started to get signal, I got this random text from a parishioner that said she talked to somebody else that somebody had broken into the church, and that was kind of it. And I thought, well, at least I know the building's there. There's something to break into. That's a win. But I think it was when I had gotten back to Back Mountain, I kind of heard this again, that somebody had broken into the church, and I got a little more of the story that they were feeling really guilty about it and wanted to know that they were, sorry they broke in. Then I found a third version of this where I said, can you please track down who this person is? There were neighbors across the street that said, all I know is I think they drive this little car. They described the car. And I saw that car. One of the times I had hiked down there back in front of the house, I walked up and introduced myself. I said, hey, and I was not dressed like this, and that I am the priest across the street. Is there anything we can do to help you? I was asking that with all the sort of neighbors. I mean, that were camping, because there were no more homes left along that road. They were camping. Half their house was still standing kind of at an angle over the river, and they were trying to get some stuff out. And I said, is there anything we can do to help you? And she said, actually, I need to talk to you. You're the priest there. I said, yeah. And she said, well, my wife and I have felt really, really guilty. We broke into the church the night of the storm because as our house was getting washed away, we saw it was the only building left. We broke a window latch. We want to figure out how to make that right. And it was that moment where, you just have that, I'm sure time didn't really stop, but that hard stop moment where then I turned to her and said, and now I know her name is Cheryl, we owe you the apology. Had we but known, and we'll come back to that, but had we but known that this was going to happen, the doors of the church would have been open. Like, you should have never had felt like you had to break. Of course, and like, if the church is not a place for refuge, what are we doing? Like, in this sense, literally a place of refuge. What are we doing? So then that conversation sort of started, and I've said, of course, like, no worries, and continued to get to know her, and both of them. And as they were working to rebuild their home, they had this goal to be the first rebuild in Batcave. They said, we want to show a sense of hope that this can happen. Now, some of you have come up and visited Transfiguration since the storm and have seen it. I've pointed it out to everyone that can. It's small, but it's beautiful, well-built house right on the river, higher up, really well ready for, God forbid, something else to come. But Episcopal Relief and Development was able to help pay for the roof. We were able to curate some funds that we have raised from all across the country to help them. They are an example of a couple paying a double mortgage. But the story even gets a little more interesting. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces and parts. So recently they asked us, actually I initiated it. There were a couple that had been showering and doing laundry in the church ever since that first since we got power and water back to the church. And of course, as well as other neighbors, and that's why we're doing this laundry facility and these other things.
I want to come back to that in just a second.
Yeah, so I'd gotten to know her just because the laundry room, it's getting changed now. We're constructing it, but there was a door from my office to the mudroom laundry room, so she would be there doing laundry, and I would talk with her and get to know her more and more. And eventually they said, would you like us to do a house blessing? They had come to the church a few times, but I didn't push it, but they didn't come often on Sunday once we were back in our building about 6 months after the storm. And she said that would actually be really meaningful. So we did. We did a house blessing on the anniversary of the storm. My daughter carried she's 4, carried the children's cross down, and we crossed the road, and we all snaked down there, and the congregation showed up, and we said blessings, and there were tears, and this really meaningful bit for them being a couple that's 2 women, both of them growing up in the church, both of them being shunned hardcore by the church, that this is the first time they've had in their words, a positive interaction with the church, with followers of Jesus in 30 years. And the fact that they welcomed us in there and we showed up and we said that blessing. But here's where the story gets kind of funny, is this was not that long ago. Roads fully open, at least if you have a pass to get through, and was driving by and saw her in the front yard. Their house was getting close to done, and she had a cast on. And I rolled down my window. I was like, Cheryl, what happened to your arm? What do you like? And she goes, well, I just got in a car accident in Charlotte when I was down there getting some stuff. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. She goes, oh, it's she's somehow spends things positively. And she goes, the car got totaled, but I'm okay, other than my arm. And I said, I'm so sorry. So then I go home. I'm thinking about how can we continue to love on them a little bit. Laura sends me an email. You would think I would make this connection. You all are already making it. I did not. She sent me an email and said, hey, there's a couple at our church that emailed me that they have a 20-year-old Toyota Tundra. I'm rounding numbers a little bit, but we're looking for a home for it. And I think, oh, that's really nice. I'll think about who needs a vehicle down here. Middle of the night, it dawns on me.
Middle of the night, bing!
Hold on.
Yes,
so I said,
happens.
actually, I think I know who this person is. The car she totaled was a roughly 20-year-old Toyota Tundra in Charlotte, remember? So we have now a sim vehicle from Charlotte coming back and is now in her driveway. Just those cool God moment and connections. And they do come to church from time to time. They feel neighbor, they feel connection. So it's just I hosted a bunch of clergy. It was the first time, it was a year, we rotate our deanery meetings. So that's like local churches, Episcopal, and rotate around, and they said, we want to come to Batcave and see it. And I said, yeah, come on. So we met there, and I was telling the story, and I told them, I'm not saying this on a pat my back way. Like, I don't know how much good we've done in back. Like, could we have done more? Could we have done less? Are we doing the right thing? I don't know. But I have one story that I know we did get this right.
Yeah.
If in that sense, that's the gospel.
So the tragedy, the crisis has not only helped you all figure out how to answer the question, what's it mean to be the church? It's helped us figure out what it means to be the church, alive and animated in the world. And now we all have responded in different ways. Laura, I can think about the getting things ready for the first batch of stuff that we sent up that day. And I just say a little bit about the gathering of all those things and getting that stuff up at the very beginning. I'm kind of jumping back in time a little bit, but say a little bit about what that was like in the response.
I will, and apologize for my hoarse voice. As I've experienced in my years at Christ Church, when I put the word out, or when we put the word out that we need something for the community, this is the most generous community. And so that came in the way of both funds in the emergency offerings that just were enormous, and then also groceries and the most needed supplies for the area. And interestingly enough, in those days and weeks after the storm, I kept reaching out to the diocese trying to figure out where are we going to connect. And Father John had been here. I got pulled out of EFM. I went and got to meet with him and hear about what was going on and hear a little bit about his story, but we were still trying to discern where all these things, these gifts were going to go. And when I finally did get through to the Diocese of Western North Carolina, they said, we would really love it. There are so many parishes in need, but we would really love it if you could share your love and your generosity with the Church of Transfiguration in Bat Cave. And I was like, I know them. So it just made so much sense.
Yeah.
And do you remember CCK? And everybody came together, and we had truckloads of food and resources that went up, and I connected Father John to.
Yeah, some of you were personal shoppers. So I had people, that lost everything, and women in their 70s and 80s that had no clothes other than what was on their back. And you had people here that went shopping. They called and asked for their size.
It felt so good to be able to have a direct connection, a connection that was from our faith community. Not that mattered. We don't typically discriminate that way, but this was a way we could really connect. Because I don't know if you remember, but Chip stood right here and said, we are going to keep showing up for Western North Carolina in these days and weeks, but in the years to come. And so we knew that we wanted to have meaningful relationship with this place. And I just think it's been organic, and it's felt holy. A few weeks ago, our women, a lot of them here from the ECW, on way to their retreat in Lake Junaluska, went and spent an amazing day. We had an amazing day with the women of your parish. And did some campus beautification. It didn't need much. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. But we just went and were in community together.
That's right. Worked alongside each other, ate alongside each other.
Alongside each other. I mean, it's just.
And we had enough left over we used for our coffee hour 2 days later. I mean,
it's just been very, very special. So
it's amazing what happens, again, when things happen in community. And we're really invited, and I use that word intentionally, we're invited by the Spirit to look around in a moment at an intersection of our lives and to ask, I wonder what the next right thing to do right now is. Would that we could kind of continue to live our lives that way, right? That at all the intersections of things that are going on, we can invite the Spirit to open our eyes and to sort of say, okay, what's the right next thing right now that needs to happen? Okay, I can deal with processing it later. There's a right thing that needs to be done right now. What's the right thing that needs to be done right now? And I think that sort of listening and acting and the moment of figuring out what's the right next thing to do right now allowed you all and continues to allow you to kind of get to where you are. But then eventually there was an opportunity where you began to say like, well, it's more than just what the right next thing. It began to become who are we becoming now, right? And I would love for you to say a little bit about how crisis led you to begin thinking about what your neighbors need. Talk a little bit about laundry. And then I'd love for you to begin to talk about the Hope Center. And about the new mission that you're also leaning into in this missional moment that you happen to be living in.
No, thank you. I'll just say briefly, I'm like a squirrel whenever these pictures go on. But a couple pictures back was the inside picture of our church you might have seen, and that was our first Sunday back, February 23rd. And I will tell you, if you've experienced this, thinking, I wonder if anybody's coming to church today. I really wondered, is anybody coming to church today? I knew I had my 2 kids and my wife. Yeah, and there it is. And it was full. And just that moment of I don't know, goodness and unexpected, I don't know, community. It's all about, we wanted to be back together, and we showed up as hard as it was to get there. But where we are kind of now and looking forward, so yeah, we're really excited we got this grant and we're doing this laundry center. I wanted something, as we as a church have been discerning kind of our response in the longer term, that would have helped Batcave before the storm, but will help them even more so because of it. So in this sense, there was already very limited access, particularly people that didn't have a laundry access at their home, or say it was damaged or needed repair, whatever. The closest drive before the storm was 30, 40 minutes to the closest laundromat, and thinking, how cool would it be to have a free laundry facility as this sort of a mission anyway? Truly had thought of this before the storm. Now with the storm and still the roadblocks that are there, the closest laundromat's an hour away, because it just takes that much longer to get out of the gorge to get there. And a lot of people have lost their laundry. So we're excited to have free laundry facility. We're hoping that'll open actually in just a few weeks. So we have a contractor working there, started a couple weeks ago, and it's going in good shape. But the other thing that really stuck with me, and I said I would come back to this phrase, is this idea of if we had but known. And I'm sort of stuck with it because I kind of did know. The church has been destroyed twice by a natural disaster. I kind of did know, right? And now this is not going to happen a fourth time. We do know that we live in a disaster-prone area, and it is probably only getting worse. So now that we know, how are we going to be prepared that this doesn't happen the next time? Some of the little things is everybody, which they didn't know before, between the hurricane and me intentionally giving out, I think literally the whole of the gorge has the code to get into the church. So if you want it, let me know. There's zero, but in seriousness, the fire chief, the neighbors across the street, the ones whose house, the story that I just talked about, people that can physically be there, have the code, so they know if there's ever a need, it is open, it's unlocked. I have signed permissions, everything. The building is to be used anytime it's needed in an event like that again. And I will say even regularly, there's plenty of weekends with ice storms and other things we lose power. I mean, it was sort of just, you could laugh about it, but it was just a little bit of living there. So even in the smaller situations, hoping again that something to this magnitude doesn't happen, but or just personal tragedy for people. So we thought we want to be in a place that we never say if we had been known, we're going to be ready, which meant we wanted to have emergency supplies ready. We wanted to have a place for emergency groups and rescue groups to work out of. We wanted to have a whole house generator for what's the old rectory where the laundry center is, but it's now like church offices and meeting space. A whole house generator, so whether somebody just has a personal event in their life and they need a place to stay, or God forbid another thing like this, that there is one place, truly, just one place in Batcave that would have water, power, and maybe even internet, depending on what was going on. So hence the whole house generator. So what we kind of dreamed up was this idea of the Hope Center, which was building a facility near that house that could store and work our current ministries out of, could store emergency supplies, from generators to food to water, so we have it. And if that's just an outreach thing, we know a family that needs some canned goods, come and get them. But also, we're ready for if something happens again. And then in tandem to that, having the whole house generator, which then powers our well, which then allows us to be a place of refuge, which it has been since the day of the storm. So let's keep this up, but not just make it a place of refuge, but make it a place of dignity and hospitality, even better than what we had been able to do. But when you are a small rural church in the mountains, funding can become a challenge to kind of pay for a dream like that.
And so in conversation with each other, this is something we're very excited to announce and to let everyone know this morning, in conversation with you, and I want to give thanks to Doug I as well, and to the Transforming Hearts Committee, and to Jeff, and to others, and to Laura and others who've been a part of that. We are excited to announce this morning. Laura, I'll let you with your voice say what we're excited to announce.
It adds some drama to it. Yeah.
We are so excited to be able to, and actually the funds are already transferred, but we have given $85,000 to your mission and the Hope Center in hopes of helping you build that and achieve that goal. And we'll continue walking alongside you as the days and months and years go on. And you've left an imprint on our heart here at Christ Church. And we are just so honored to be able to walk alongside you.
Yeah.
The honor is absolutely ours. The Thanksgiving from my parish to you all, and I say that as just a conduit of the voices right now that are worshiping in Batcave, passing those thanks, but just as grateful as we are, and we are deeply grateful for the funding assistance and that incredibly generous gift, that it's also met with relationship at the same time.
Yes.
ECW coming, me being down here.
Yeah.
But just, along the way, you guys gave us gift cards. At Christmas, I was like Father Christmas, right? So I said our first real service back was February 23rd. We did do a community Eucharist. Our first Eucharist was Christmas Eve. And it was not really for our folk because they couldn't get there. It was for whoever, I hiked down there and it was whoever was there could do it. And again, it was pretty full. But then I had all these beautiful gift cards and little things that you all packaged that then we gave out. Those are just some examples of the relationship that comes behind the gift.
So it strikes me that you put some things in your backpack that were necessary for what it meant to be the church as tabernacle, moving around in the world. And part of the vision that you're getting to embody right now on that, as that sort of beacon of hope on the side of the hill, because the generation before you happened to get it right that time, and now you guys have a vision for what it looks like to get it right. You're putting some things in that hope center that are the things that you really sense with the wisdom that you've been given and the faith that you have and the partnerships that you're developing will be necessary to continue as best you can to be that place of hope as the people in Batcave and as the communities around Batcave continue to build. You said to me last night, and I think I want to say it out loud this way so that you can know that this is not just a now thing. Yes, I said we want to be with God in the now, but it's a now and then thing. You said to me that in the early days after the storm, people told you that it might be 5 to 7 years before life returned to normal. And I just want to name out loud that we're here talking about hope and about perseverance and about starting to let hope take root in a new way at the end of year 1, y'all. At the end of year 1. And I wonder, as you think about what you hope for, what can be alive and what can be rebuilt and what can happen in that area, what do you vision? What's your hope?
Yeah. So one of these pictures that cycles through, it's an old green house and written on a board. And this was written the first time I hiked down there. And it's funny, it looks like the building is standing, but only the first third is there. The back of it, it's like a knife just cut it off and went into the river. But that front part, somebody painted 2 bats on either side, Batcave, but in the middle, still here, still standing. That phrase was one I used often at the beginning. The other one that I've used a lot, and what you heard me mention in that video, is this idea of bearing witness. And I think it's that feel that our church, it's its own interesting history, but was founded by the Sisters of the Transfiguration in Cincinnati, Ohio, a group of nuns, and their mission there was to bring shelter, to help people out. It was a place of retreat for them. And in the first storm, these sisters came down from Ohio and provided shelter, and they provided the basic need to the people in Batcave after that first storm 100 years ago. And we're still in connection and relationship with them, and they have also helped fund and send things down. But that idea of carrying on that legacy of being a beacon of hope, of being, with that phrase, of bearing witness to what God has done and is doing, the faithfulness of God, despite the challenges. But then also that still here, still standing. Maybe that doesn't sound like the highest bar to reach for, but on the other hand, it was like, we are still here. Because it would be honestly a lot easier to not be the Church of the Transfiguration in Batcave. But God has called us to that space.
That's right.
And God has called us, that the collect, which you would hear here, the prayer that you do on the Feast of the Transfiguration is on this mountainside, a place of quietude. Like, these are words that come in. And how can we live into that idea of being this place on the mountainside that welcomes all? We're the only mainline church in the whole gorge area, where people can find safety, stability, and comfort. And God willing, through that, hear the words of Jesus: love God, love neighbor, love self. And if that's what we do, then I guess that's where my hope hangs.
That's beautiful. So let me get this right.
So I haven't told you all this in advance.
Some faithful people from Ohio
Yeah.
heard a story about some people that had a need, and they decided the next thing to do was to go start a church for the Transfiguration. And a priest living outside of Asheville from Ohio
It's true.
felt a call to go live on the side of a mountain with his wife and kids so that he could be present to what God was doing. And a storm came, and he's been living with his community and with people from all over the world to figure out what it looks like for hope to be built on the side of the same mountain. You can't make it up, guys. You can't make it up. You cannot make it up. God is always doing things and weaving our stories.
It's just like the story of that truck.
See, we're back at it,
yeah,
right?
You can't
it's
make
like
it up.
it's like the Toyota Tundra, right? We need another Toyota Tundra. Okay, we have a Toyota.
Yeah.
God invites us to that journey of faith and hope and awareness in our lives right where we are. Next week, we're going to have an intergenerational service day here. We'll have 2 services at Christ Church, both at 8:45. And then in this room, we're going to be all together, and we're going to put our worship to work. And we're going to pack some boxes of soup and of cookies, and those boxes are going to go up, and they're going to be an expression of Christ Church love and presence in that Hope Center with John. Laura, you want to add anything else to that?
Well, the idea for this intergenerational day of service came from conversation with John. I was mentioning to him that we wanted to do something else this around the time of the year anniversary, and to really support his community. And in conversation, you said to me, people have their basic needs for the most part now. But what they need to know is that they aren't forgotten. Their bodies and souls need to be nourished. And you brought up the idea of this friendship soup. We were talking about what this might look like. And I thought, that's something we can do. We could do a big food packing event. So that's what we're doing next weekend. And I'm going to need all of you all and your little people. It's intergenerational, so
And lots of hand sanitizer.
Lots of gloves, hand sanitizer,
Hairnets, everything.
We've got all the things. And we're going to be packing friendship soup that'll go in boxes, and it'll be shelf stable. And so when that Hope Center is complete, there will be hopefully 300 boxes that you can give to any neighbor that walks up and says they need something. And it'll feed their body and mind and soul. And we are just so excited. Folks, there are lots of ways you can help with next week, even if you can't be here. There are still lots of supplies that we're collecting for the week, throughout this week. So touch base with Harrison or I, and we can help connect you to ways that you can help us next weekend. But we are so excited and just honored to walk alongside you. We'll be back up. I know the ladies from the ECW will be back up because we had a good time.
And our ladies want to come down. And
that's what we're already in the work. We're already thinking, plotting goodness for that.
So, John, just again, on behalf of people of Christ Church, people of Bat Cave, as a clergy colleague, thank you.
Gosh, thank you.
Thank you for bearing witness to what it means to live out your vocation in this world. And we're here. We're a text or a call away, and we look forward to seeing how God continues to bring hope into the world through our ongoing walking and figuring out how to do life together in the months and years to come.
Gosh, well, the
Thank you
honor,
for being
honor is ours.
How about
you?
Thank you for listening. We invite you to subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and connect with Christ Church Charlotte on social media. If you'd like to attend a Faith Forum live, visit christchurchcharlotte.org/Faith Forum to view dates and details of upcoming talks.